Hi everyone, you should be on RN6 and we're going to do a review of squares and cubes. So let's start off with what the word square means. Square means an exponent of 2. Remember that the number, in this case 3, is the base. It's being used as a factor 2 times. 2 is my exponent. So 3 squared equals 3 times 3, and 3 times 3 is 9. When we want to find the square root, finding the square root undoes squaring. So instead of squaring a number, I want to find out what number that when I square it will give me the number inside the symbol. So the square root of 9 is 3, because 3 times 3 equals 9. When we work with squares, there are a couple rules you want to remember. If I square a positive number, I get a positive number. Positive times a positive equals positive. If I square a negative number, it equals positive, because a negative times a negative is a positive. This is the symbol for a square root, and it means what number times itself will give you what's within that symbol. So let's look at this example. I have a square there. This square is made up of 16 little squares. So if I find the square root of 16, I want to know what number times itself will give me 16, and that's 4. And I know that 4 squared equals 16. So in the case of that particular example, that's something we call a perfect square. And a perfect square is any number that shows the area of a square. So 16 shows the area of a square, 4 by 4. There are other squares, for example, 1 and 9 and 25, 36, and so on. I make a square, a perfect square, or a square out of that total number. The square root, then, is the length of the side. So let's look at these 3 examples. Notice that this is a 3 by 3 square. So I know that 3 squared equals 9. The square root of 9 equals 3. Okay, that side length is the square root. This square is 2 by 2. 2 squared equals 4. Square root of 4 equals 2. And then finally, this is a 1 by 1. 1 squared equals 1. The square root of 1 equals 1. Now, that square root symbol is actually called a radical sign, and that symbol actually means the non-negative square root, or the positive square root. Because remember, a negative times a negative will also give me a positive. But when we're working with square roots, we're generally going to look for the positive square root. The radicand, then, is that number that's in the radical sign. And then when I'm reading a square root, I actually read it. The square root of 81 is read the square root of 81. Again, both 4 times 4 and negative 4 times 4 equals 16. So 16 actually has 2 square roots, 4 and negative 4. But that radical sign is a symbol that indicates the positive square root. So whenever you're looking at the positive square root, or that symbol, the square root of 81 is 9. If I want you to tell me the negative square root, I'll actually put a negative sign in front of it, in which case this would mean, what is the negative square root of 81? And that's negative 9. And if I want you to do both roots, I would put a plus and a minus sign. So I want both the positive and the negative, and a plus and a negative together shows that there are the 2 square roots. All right, let's look at cubes. Cubing, or a cube, means an exponent of 3. So 6 to the 3rd power, 6 times 6 times 6. My base is 6. It's being used as a factor 3 times. It equals 216. So finding the cube root undoes cubing. Notice there's a little 3 right there in the corner. That tells you that you want the cubed root. Well, the cubed root of 216 is 6. Again, when I cube a positive number, I get a positive number. When I cube a negative number, I get a negative number. And then the symbol for a cubed root is the radical sign with a 3. And there again, notice that the shape is actually a cube. So here's a cube, and it's a 2 by 2 by 2. So I know that 2 cubed equals 8. And then if I wanted to find the cubed root of 8, I know that the cubed root of 8 is 2. And a perfect cube is any number that shows the volume of a cube. So again, think of as you're cubing. So 1 would be a perfect cube, 8 is a perfect cube, 27 is a perfect cube because they have the same side lengths, the length, the width, and the height. And then the cube root is the side length. So again, I have 2 cubes there. And notice this is a 3 by 3 by 3. So 3 cubed equals 27. And the cubed root of 27 is 3. And then I have a 1 by 1 by 1. So 1 cubed equals 1. And then the cubed root of 1 equals 1. Okay. And so again, if you have any questions, be sure to bring them to class with you tomorrow.